Next to this. Okay, it's good.
Okay, we got it. It's recording. Okay,
Good.
all right, all right. Sorry
Yeah,
about
I hit record.
that. Not showing
Okay,
on.
thank you.
All right, we're recording. Okay, so Myrna Calderon, Chair of the Ad Hoc Bylaws Committees of Community Board 7 Bronx, and I am going to read the guidelines. On September 2nd, 2021, Governor Kathy Hochul signed into law Chapter 417 of the laws of 2021, which authorizes the community board to run this meeting remotely, and minutes will be taken for record keeping. The minutes will appear on our website within days and can be requested from Bronx Community Board 7 staff at any time. If you are calling into the meeting, during the conference controls while joining from a landline or cell by calling dial-up number, which you should have. If you need it, you would be on here. To hear all the available commands, you're gonna hit at the star on your phone. And if you want to mute yourself, it's *6 if you are, or unmute yourself. And if you want to virtually raise your hand, you're going to hit *9. And the meeting will run as follows. A code of conduct has been adapted by Community Board 7 for all meetings. Bronx Community Board 7 has the right to remove or ask a member of the public to leave a meeting or block participation of anyone who engages in inappropriate conduct, including but not limited to obscene or offensive images or language, personal attacks, threats, or any other behavior that reasonably impedes the orderly administration of the meeting. Repeated offenses will be reviewed by the board's executive committee or any other assigned committee for a ban, the amount of time to be objectively determined by the above committees or of the participant in the event of repeated disruptive behavior. If in-person outbursts or attacks continue, this will be considered disturbing the peace and authorities will be summoned. Everyone besides the speaker will stay muted throughout the meeting unless you're going to speak, of course. After each presentation is over, we will inquire of committee members if they have any questions. Committee members will signify that they have questions by pressing the raise hand button on your screen by Zoom or requesting to speak through the chat when the chair opens the floor. Members, and this is a little bit different for this committee, and I'll share that later. And members of the public who have joined through online link will be able to listen in on this meeting. And after the committee has had opportunity to ask clarifying questions by pressing raise hands button on your screen or or request to speak through the chat room when the chair opens the floor. Only those recognized by the chair of the committee will be allowed to speak during the allotted time. We will stay on topic with agenda items. Any other items will be acknowledged by the chair in new business or addressed at the next meeting. Granted, there is time and the committee agrees on the topic. Following the questions, discussion, public comment portion, the committee will begin their discussions after each presentation agenda item and will continue with discussion to vote on a recommendation. When the agenda is finished, the meeting will be adjourned. If there are any questions related to meeting software or our process, please use the function and raise hand now to contact the district manager. Okay, is that clear, everybody? I know it's long and lengthy, but I think everybody's used to it by now. So I just want to give one more caveat to this because there were a lot of questions that came up at the community board last night. First, I want to clarify that when that this is a working committee, so I really need the committee members to be able to speak on what we're doing and without interruption. And I'm asking anybody that's not on the committee to kind of hold their questions to later until we've made the changes or discuss any changes that we're trying to do. And this is to just make sure that we are cognizant of everybody's time and to make sure that the actual committee is having the discussion right now. So with that, are there any questions before we start? I just see some things already in the chat room. Okay, thank you, Hugo. I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, so with that, let's open up. Let's start where we finish where we started. Everybody. Oh, and by the way, I think that thank you for the this community board 7 staff. I believe they sent a copy of the bylaws. Is I kind of think I got an email.
Yes, we sent it last night right after the meeting.
Right, everybody got a copy. So those of you who don't have a copy should have one. Understand that what we're doing is working on that copy. That's where the changes are being made, and any changes that we made will go before the full board. There are some things that we are going to have motions on tonight that need to be voted on at the next, well, first has to be voted on by the executive committee, but also by the full board. So we'll be addressing that later. So with that, let's, I think Yahira, you're on. Are you on, Yahira? Yeah, I think I let you in. Oh, let's take attendance. Okay. So present, oh, Yahira's in the waiting room. Okay. Okay. So present, Myrna Calderon, chair.
Don't we, I'm sorry, do we need an attendance roster?
Yeah, is it up?
I don't know who puts it up. I don't have it. I don't know.
Okay, well, let me see. I can tell you right now who's on this committee. It's not up, but as you all know, Ann Twain is no longer on this committee, but we have Andrew Leosa. Are you present? I
Andrew Leosa
see you.
present.
Betty Arce,
Betty RC present.
Barbara Stronzer,
Barbara Stronzer is present.
Yahira Arias.
Yahira Arias present.
So who is missing? Is it
Andrew. Oh, you got it.
Andrew's present?
Right.
Yeah, we're all
I don't
here.
know who else. Is that it?
I think so. We're all here. So we're good. Okay, and of course, and our district managers here.
Aisha?
Aisha Bravo.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm on the phone. That's why I didn't. hope you
Yeah.
up.
So I just know that I just want to acknowledge that you are here. Okay, and we have members of, and then we have another board member here, Hugo. And I see you there. And we also have present AJ from the community. Welcome. Is there anybody else that I missed? No. Okay, so let's get started. I think believe we are dealing with the officers, but with the committees. But I think we need to go back and look at the officers, because there's a clarification that we need on the officers, and that's going back to, and everybody has a copy of theirs. They can pull their open, everybody should have it in their, I'll give everybody a minute to pull their copy up.
I don't know where mine is.
Because if you have Gmail, it should be there. Because we have to talk about the officers, the chairpersons.
Myrna, can everybody see the screen? I pulled
Yeah.
it up.
Yes, yeah,
Yes, I asked Yahira to share the screen so that
but
you could see it. So I can run the meeting and somebody else could be typing in the changes instead of me trying to run the meeting and type the changes. That's why I miss Ann Twain.
right.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's go back to, I'm making a motion that we go back to the chairpersons because there's a missing piece here. We all understand that when the chairperson is not available, that the first, second chair can take over. So we need, but if there is a permanent, I don't think that we it's not clear in the bylaws, and Andrew, you can clarify that with me. If there is a permanent vacancy as a chairperson, the bylaws right now are not clear. It just says, oh, if somebody's not there, they just step up. But I would like to make a thing. What does it say? Because it looks like it's like there's not a clear understanding of what happens if the chairperson is no longer has to step down for whatever reason.
Well, it was always, from what I recall, that you never moved up, only on an interim basis.
Right. So
There was an election.
Right. So
Okay.
on an interim basis, but if it's you're talking about like a whole year, you have an interim chairperson. I'm saying
I
maybe
don't think you could take a year's leave of absence. Isn't there a time limit of 6 months?
But we're not
At
talking
most.
about-
right, but
we're
we're saying if somebody is removed for whatever reason or steps down, not just a leave of absence. I think the better thing is to give the board an opportunity to vote on that. I
Well,
mean,
we
I'm
always-
throwing it out there. If
I
that's
like that idea. I agree. A special election, an election within a reasonable amount of time to.
right, because if obviously if it's a 2 months, hiatus, that's fine. But if you're talking about somebody who's, like we voted in June and now here's September and there's no real chair, I think that that's probably the bet. I think that there needs to be something in the bylaws that say that we should have an election, a special election.
I believe there is already something, if a board member wants to take a leave, it could be for 6 months. I think that's tops. It's got to be in here somewhere. And, if you do it for 6 months, fine, but if it's longer than that, then you have a special election.
Right.
I mean, can
I think what you're saying is, let's say somebody decides to move to California
Right,
permanently. They resign from the board. They were the chairperson. We were 1 month into the term, and they decide to leave. So the question is, should the board operate with an acting chairperson who is the vice chairperson, or should we go for an election within 30 days, 60 days? And then, who could run? Can any existing officer run? Then you make another vacancy. It's a tough question. I don't know.
can everybody hear me?
yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I've technical difficulties for the last 48 hours, apparently. I think what Myrna's saying is what Andrew just articulated, right? Which is pretty much, instead of just having an interim chair to fill the term, because that's pretty much how the bylaws are written, that the board move to have an immediate election. Immediate could mean, to Andrew's point, the next general board meeting, right? Which would, instead of saying 30 days, because you can have the next general board meeting in 14 days, since we just bumped up all the meetings, right? So you gotta be careful with language like that. But you want to at least generalize it to say the next general board meeting, where the expectation of a full board is expected.
No, I think it's already written that at the next board, it's announced at the next board meeting, there will be nominations for the
No,
position.
Barbara, no.
But that's what we've done.
Right? No, that's
Yeah,
not what it says in the bylaws. That's
Right,
not what it
and
says
that's
in the
why-
bylaws.
Right, that's why we need to clarify. That's why the clarification needs to be made, because
The next
should
election
not be-
cycle is June of 2023. And let's use the for instance of this right now. Let's say all hypothetical.
Right,
The existing chairperson does not return, right?
Right.
You, as the acting chair, first vice chair, however, will remain the chair, will assume the role up until the next election cycle. What they're saying is that they move for an immediate election.
but
That's what they're saying.
it's always been that.
Barbara,
once
what
that
they were
person-
very clear what it's
Can I
always
explain
been.
something, please? It's always been, it may not say it clearly, that when that person leaves, the hypothetical chair leaves the board, the next in line would call for an election and ask for nominations at the next meeting. So people would have a little time to decide whether or not they wanted to be nominated. And then the next meeting after that of the nominations, there would be an election.
No, Barbara, that's never been the case. Jean assumed the position of Adeline for the remainder of the term, then went to an election where Emmanuel won. That's what the bylaw says. I don't know what you're talking about.
I was acting chair when Adeline left for several months. I'm sure of that.
Okay,
And how
it's
about
on,
this? How about instead of,
Andrew, what do you remember? Go ahead.
well,
it's
instead of
on
arguing
page
about this,
6. Section 3, page 6, section 3. Upon the death, resignation, or removal of any officer, the vacancy created shall be filled by the board. I think we have to get rid of the death, whatever, when there's a vacancy. Anyway,
thank you, thank you.
the election
Thank you.
to fill such a vacancy shall take place no later than the second meeting following the creation of the vacancy.
Right.
It's right here in our existing bylaws.
Yes.
Right.
The manner of
Right.
voting shall be the same as set forth in section 2, blah, 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 the same.
Okay, so then
So,
this is
page
where the
6,
change
section
needs to
3, it's
happen.
already in there.
This is where the
Okay.
change needs to happen, where instead of waiting for it, why don't we just put it in that upon resignation, removal, death, within the 30 days, whether that is the next general board meeting, a special election takes place for that position.
Right.
That's all there is.
Yeah, just clarify it, because I don't think that people really know. This is the thing that's happening with the bylaws. Now that we're going through the bylaws, there's a lot of things in here that we're not aware we're in here. And the clarification for us and the community and new board members needs to happen. So I think anything that we can do to make it clearer would help. So it's already in there, so let's just make sure that everybody's aware of it.
Right.
Okay?
Okay, so now here's
So
if
30
we're going back to this, so are we gonna keep, at one point we crossed off death, resignation, or removal. So now this is the question. Are we going to keep death, resignation, or removal?
No, just
This is-
vacancy, just a vacancy. That covers
Vacancy,
everything.
yes, that's a better
When
term.
somebody's on leave, that's not a vacancy. This is
Right.
a vacancy, a permanent,
Right.
they're,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Maybe, you know, they can be reappointed in next year or whatever, but there's a vacancy. So the vacancy, on the vacancy of any officer, it will be filled by the board by election anyway. We'll just, yeah, it's right there. The wording's kind of there, yeah.
Okay. I mean, if you want to make it clear and just add back in those things, but a vacancy is a vacancy.
Vacancy, right, that should clarify.
How does everybody feel about that?
Okay.
I like to work by consensus.
Mhm.
Is everybody good with that?
Yes, vacancy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question, how about if that vacancy occurs right before the summer break? Does it matter?
No, so then things happen in September then, or the month after, no
Yeah,
more
but they
than
can't
60
be
days.
operating, what you don't want is,
I
And
guess
then
the-
the first, then the next in line assumes responsibility, I mean, for the summer. Aisha, are you anticipating something happening?
Yeah, it sounds like it.
No, something happening in the summer that would require,
Well, that's the thing, that you have to anticipate. You guys are a board where ULURP can come up, right? So just
Right.
think, right?
Okay, all right.
so what, so.
My question is, if you are an existing officer, are
Mhm.
you excluded for running for chairperson? So can the second vice chair, the first vice chair run for chairperson, or are they excluded? And we need to, you know,
They're
say
not,
that, know what
because
the
they-
answer is.
No,
Yeah,
there will have to be nominations within the 30 days.
no, let me clarify the election. Anyone can run for any position. They just can't hold two.
Right,
Right.
and you can't run for
The thing
two.
though is then if somebody runs and let's say they win, then you just created another vacancy. So we
Right.
can live with that and that's
Yes.
okay.
It's always been the
All
way.
That's the way it works in
That's
the regular.
democracy.
Just have to sign or accept. I mean, we've been in those instances, right, where folks have been nominated for stuff, but it's
Right.
no different than a regular election. Like if, you know, the current, there's a senator who runs for governor and then wins, you know? Well, that's probably bad. example.
Exactly.
Do we want to clarify if this happens, if the vacancy happens in the summer or in June? Because like you said, things happen in the summer, even though we don't meet in the summer, there's a lot of stuff that happens. I don't know.
We can put a clause that said that if the vacancy occurs during,
Board's hiatus or whatever. when
yeah, the board's hiatus or off season, if you want to put it that way, then.
No, because technically you're not really off, right? Technically,
Right.
you're not really
No,
off. Like
no,
if
not
they're
off ever.
considered-
I'm just
if they-
saying, trying to figure out.
I know,
whether-
but let hear me out, because this is where the ULURP part and things happen, right?
Right.
So like, there's a ULURP that happens in July, the chairperson or the secretary of the board has to call an emergency meeting and convene the board. Now, if you don't meet quorum, you don't meet quorum. That's a whole separate conversation, right?
Right.
But like, you need to know that part. What you choose to do with that, that's up to the board. I'm just sharing.
Okay,
So why
you
is
said
it,
some-
I'm sorry, so why isn't the, should the chair, are we talking about any officer? Or are we talking about the chair?
Any officer,
right,
Right. So
Right.
we would,
The issue though is, okay, it's during the summer, so you're saying, let's say, I don't know, July 4th, the chairperson decides to move to California, so now we have a vacancy. Are you
Mhm.
saying we're gonna have a meeting, a board meeting in August to have an election
I
to
don't know.
vote for the chairperson? I mean,
No.
No,
can just-
that should be
No.
the interim, that would be, we're talking about a long-term type of vacancy, such as what you're talking about, Andrew, but we do have a successions, at least temporarily, so that would be the first vice president would assume the chairmanship, the chairship until the board.
Until the election.
okay. So this is where the issue happens. So if you have the second vice chair, which we do have right now, and she's doing a great job, what if she doesn't want it, and then it goes down to the third vice chair? So this is where the problem can become a cascading effect that somebody, So do we want to do that, or do we want to call a special meeting if we had to?
I
No,
was
I don't-
considering a
No,
call a
you
special
don't- you
meeting
can't
if need be. Why not? We can call a special meeting.
no, I don't think that would be
No,
fair.
no.
People are vacation and whatever, and I would just leave it until September, and whoever is next in line steps up only on an interim basis. But that's crazy to expect people over, people vacation then. They have families and whatever.
No, I think we're presuming that that's gonna, I mean, I don't see how that could be the case. You're a vice chair, and you know that you're responsible and will have to assume some degree of responsibility for chairmanship should it come to that, and that goes with the job, basically. I'm saying it goes with the job,
If you don't want the position, you would have to resign.
Right,
I hate to-
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's part of the definition. It's in the bylaws that
Right,
if something happens to you, that's it. So, yeah.
right, exactly, take it or leave it, so let's not presume anything. Let's
Well,
just-
you're not forced into moving on up either. That's why
Well,
there's a.
Aisha, but that doesn't make sense to me. If you assume you accepted a nomination, you accepted the results of an election for a
No,
position.
that's not what that's not, no, you're right about that. I'm talking about the succession part in terms of the interim part is what I'm saying. Not what you're saying.
Okay, I'm just getting something here that maybe we want to use. If the second vice chair refuses to move up to chair, which of
The
course that
first
has
vice-
not happened,
First
right?
vice
The
chair.
first vice chair refuses to move up to the chair position, then a special election should be held. I think. What does everybody think? Or
I don't know why we need to spell out, those kind of, it could happen in any position. And what I'm saying is you have to assume responsibility for that position. If everybody decides to resign, then we have to have an election for all the positions if it comes to that. But at this point, I'm assuming that every person who is an officer is doing so, understands their responsibility, and is willing and prepared to take on that work of assuming the chairpersonship until an election is held. They're not held to it forever. It's just simply until an election is held. And I think that should be sufficient. You shouldn't be able, you can't pass it on to anybody else. You have to assume the position, whoever it is. I don't know what happens beyond how it cascades down, but I don't think we're going to be in that position. I think once that's how I feel. I don't think we need to, I think it's good for us to make sure that it's understood that we will hold a special election, or an election shall be held within a reasonable amount of time to fill a vacancy that we know is permanently vacant, so it's not like, the person just steps down, but there is a vacancy and we need to fill it. And that's what I would suggest. I don't think that we need to go beyond trying to tweak this to the point where if he doesn't want or she doesn't want it, then next in line. I think that we want to try to streamline our bylaws, make them clear, transparent, and not bog it down with all this minutia. Those are things that could or could not happen. That's my,
I agree with Betty. I think when you assume a position, you take on the responsibility if someone leaves or whatever, that you're a temporary, and that's it.
So, well, it's very clear that we have 30 days to hold an election. So that is what we're going to have to do. Does anybody have any other-
Is it not more than 60? What is it? Andrew, you read something. Where are you, Andrew?
It
What was-
says in
yeah.
section 3, the election to fill such a vacancy shall take place no later than the second meeting following the creation of the vacancy. So they
That's
don't say days, the second meeting.
Meeting, right, that's
If it's
reasonable.
in, September, then it doesn't happen until November.
No,
That's the
No,
second meeting,
no,
the
no.
normal.
Then
Right.
this is where it needs to be changed, that it should take place no later than at the next general board meeting.
Yeah, that's where it should be. Because this is a special, it's not your normal election. We need somebody to take the chair. Whether it be one of the officers that's running or somebody else. Yeah, let's fix that. Let's clear that up.
Well, the only thing with that is that sometimes, people, when you announce that so-and-so has left or whatever, people need some time to decide whether or not they want to run. I like the 60-day, not for myself personally or whatever, but the fact that, it can be 30 days, but people sometimes want to talk over whether or not they'll have the time with their family or whatever. And then if you have nominations first at the next month, and then the 60 days, the second time, you would have your election. I don't see anything terrible about that, and I don't understand what the big rush is.
Well, I kind of disagree a little bit, Barbara, and the reason why I disagree is because for all the things that Betty said, if we take on the responsibility to be a part of this board, in my opinion, 30 days should be more than enough. Why? Because we're all adults. We're all and we all communicate. And I really, really do believe that 60 days is way too much for a lot of hoopla to happen. 30 days should be more than enough for if it has to happen right away, 30 days should be more than enough. I mean, we're not children. We're not, we just need to be more streamlined and straight to the point. We got to make people responsible. And this is one of the things that's happening with this board. We're not making people step up to the plate and be responsible for the things they have to do. And we have, I am fighting for it should happen immediately within 30 days.
Well,
Yeah, but then we have to change the language in section 3, because it does say that the manner of voting shall be the same as set forth in section 2 of the Article 5, except no nominating committee shall be appointed. Well, we don't have nominating committees anyway, and all candidates will be nominated from the floor. So it's saying then we have to have a general board meeting where people are nominated on the floor. Then the next month, which is basically 60 days, that's when the voting takes place. Unless we want to change that, which we can. But right now, this is saying it's just like a regular election. However we run our regular elections, that's the way we do it when there's a vacancy. We can change that, but right now, that's what it says.
Yeah, and I think too, if you nominate at one meeting, people want to hear what the people who are running for the office have to say. So that's going to take up some time. And then if you're going to vote the same night, it's going to be, a bit much. So this way, if you nominate 1 month, the next month they get up for a couple of minutes and then you just do your vote. So if you left it the way it is, not more than 60 days, it covers a lot.
Right. I agree. I think we need to give people time to.
Exactly. To the
say,
same, yeah.
Remember, we may have new board members because that becomes a whole nother issue.
Right. But if you already have a first vice chair, right?
Right.
And there's a vacancy, and we know that we have to have, it's a real vacancy. They've been removed, they moved to Florida, wherever happened. And there is no reason to delay it for 60 days. The vacancy's announced, they have a whole 30 days to decide whether they want to run. At the next board meeting, we're taking nominations from the floor, and there's an election, and we fill the vacancy. And it could very well be that the board decides they want the first vice chair to be chair. And that's usually, since I've been on this board, that's kind of what's been kind of happening. You have people that are already in the executive board running. So I don't see why we have to wait 60 days. I think it's something as important as the chair of the committee of the board has to be filled right away.
I disagree. How can we do this in 30 days? We need time. We need people to, at one meeting, to nominate. Tell me where from one meeting, from one general board meeting to the next, what do? We announce there's a vacancy. Person flies off to Florida, leaves us, fine. So then what? At one board, at general board meeting, we take nominations, and then.
But it says we could take nominations from the floor because it's a special election. It's not the regular. It's not.
So here's okay. So is that person going to fill the remainder of the previous person's term as chair, or the calendar starts, the clock starts all over again, and we're electing a brand new chairperson?
Unless we want to change
the remaining term.
The remaining of the term.
So
then
that
you go
needs to
right
be-
back to the clock.
So that needs to be
For
clear.
discussion purposes, it's not 60 days. It's a second meeting, which
The
may or may not be 60
Right.
days. So the
Makes
second
sense.
meeting, let's stick with
Yes.
that. Thank you.
Right, it's the second meeting. In other words, the vacancy is, let's say it was the meeting we just had yesterday. At yesterday's meeting, it was announced that, let's use Adeline, because Adeline resigned. So now there's a vacancy. And so at that meeting, we say, okay, we're going to have an election at the next general board meeting, which would be June. And at the June meeting, we will take nominations from the floor for chair of Community Board 7. And so Adeline had 1 year already, so it's only for the year that's left.
So when is the election?
It would happen in June.
So so Adeline resigns at the same meeting, at the same general board meeting, we take nominations and conduct an election?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's a special circumstance. We have a vacancy.
Yeah,
So,
how-
because,
have
I mean,
an
Edgar, I don't know why Edgar's not talking, but Edgar is making a good point here. That if we wait until, like, let's say the vacancy happens in June or May,
Okay,
and we have to wait all the way till September to start the process. That means the election wouldn't happen until November. So we have to be careful because we
Oh.
can't be 4 months without a
Why can't we
elected
take,
chair.
why can't we take nominations in June and then have the election in September?
In September, makes sense.
If that, if it's at that point, you know.
Then what happens if something
Right.
happens during those summer months and we're get stuck with no one? I mean, in my
We
opinion.
have, we have,
An interim.
you have the interim
Right.
chair.
I think-
We're not.
I'm not doing that totally, I hope.
Well, I just think the special election, like we do motions on the floor, like we take votes on the floor, this will be no different than what we do on a regular basis.
No, election is a big deal.
It's a different, this is not a
It's a
motion.
different thing completely. It's not a motion.
This is that, this
Oh,
is. this
let's
is not a-
vote, let's vote on the motion. I mean, whatever, I think we all know what our opinions
ju-
are. Let's get a
Yeah,
consensus.
let's,
on.
Edgar wants to
okay,
talk.
the
Edgar?
first, do
Just,
we,
just,
go ahead, Edgar, go ahead.
no, just as a heads up, the reason why I'm not talking, I don't want to talk over anybody, right? And I don't know if you guys hear the TV in the background. I'm in the room. I don't want to turn the TV off on everybody. You know what I'm saying? Because
Okay.
I'm kind of at work, but I want to share. Like I said, I don't want to talk over anyone else, and so that's why I've been putting this stuff in the chat. But good evening to everybody, and I hope everybody's doing well.
Okay, hi. So anyway, so the only ones on that are officially part of this committee is Barbara, Betty, myself, who else do we have here?
Andrew?
Yahira and Andrew. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right.
So I guess let's make our opinions known. Do we want to stick to what the bylaw says, that if there's a vacancy, it is announced, and at the next board meeting, the election takes place? Who is in favor of that? Somebody make them, who's gonna make that motion? Nobody?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Yahira's made the motion that we stick to what the bylaw says, which is the vacancy is
No,
announced.
no, the bylaws says at the next meeting, you would conduct an election the way we normally do. And the way we normally hold an election is the first month after whatever, it's announced it will be an election. The first month you take nominations, and then the vote takes place
Right.
the next month, the next meeting. I shouldn't say month, the
So
next
it's-
meeting.
yeah,
So the
yeah.
first meeting is nominations, the second meeting is, and that's the way we normally, so the existing bylaw says we will conduct an election the way we always do. That's what the bylaw says. And the change that we want, that some people want, advocate for, is that we do like a special election, special rules for this vacancy, and the special rule is the next meeting, nominations will be taken from the floor, and the voting takes place that same meeting. So that's
Correct.
the difference. We're
Okay.
deciding.
So the first one is, okay, so let's get a consensus here. So the first one is to change it to a special meeting, which means that the vacancy is announced, and at the next meeting, nominations are taken from the floor
And elections.
and election held.
This is an
I'm
expedited.
confused now. You keep changing what the first motion is and the second. I
Right.
thought we were
We were-
voting.
We were clarifying because Andrew is saying that what we're doing is changing what's there now. What's
Right.
there now is that we make the announcement, then we take nominations, and
The
then
next-
we have the election. That leaves us, could be 3 months without a chair.
2 months, no?
No, because you're making the announcement. At the next meeting, you're taking
Yeah.
nominations.
So in
And then
one
at the
month,
next
you
meeting,
have
you're voting.
nominations, and then the month after that is.
So you could be 90 day or more, because we don't know when this person
It's
resigns.
no more than
We are right now,
months.
okay, we're right now operating without a duly elected chair right now.
Yeah,
Who
right.
happens to be on leave, and we have an interim chair. So I, you
Right.
know,
But we have, but he's on leave. He's not,
right,
But
but
it's the
even
same
if
difference.
it's, to me, it's not any different. We have somebody who's assumed the chairpersonship until we can clarify what's going on. So let's just be clear, what you're suggesting, the change would be an expedited, so I'm just, you know, just kind of like just to wrap it up a little bit, an expedited process to elect a chair to fill the,
a vacancy
Remainder-
of the chair.
right, exactly, the
But a
remaining.
special election, that's all.
A
Refer to it as.
special
a
election.
That's-
That's because,
Right. Okay,
right.
so that's what that is.
so
Okay,
that's it.
all right. So I just want to understand what that most, and then the other one is to keep it as it
To
is.
keep it as is,
Okay, all right,
but,
okay, all right, all right. Okay,
all right.
I want to make sure. Okay.
So Yahira, is that the motion that you're making?
Yes, the motion that I'm making is to change, to make it a special election, right? We're going for that first.
Right.
All
So
right.
I second that. Is anybody else? Okay, so let's call that vote. Yahira is obviously a yes.
Yes.
I'm saying yes. Anybody else? Is there any yes to that? So, Edgar is, Edgar?
Yes, I'm raising my hand as a yes.
Okay,
I wasn't sure if my mic was on, sorry.
okay, so you have 1, 2, 3 yeses. Any against?
I'm against,
I'm against. I mean, mine is a no.
mine's a no too.
Andrew?
Andrew votes no to the motion.
Okay, so we
That's
have a
fine.
standstill because I think we are missing a committee member here, but that's.
Right, we don't have, it would have been untwained, right?
Right.
Right.
So
So
now we have a committee that's even numbered and we don't have a way of breaking the tie.
So the way you can break it is by leaving both suggestions on there. So when you bring it to the floor, let the board
Is it the
decide.
floor to- Okay, okay,
Okay, so obviously the second motion is to leave it as is.
yes,
All right, and who's gonna make that motion?
I'll make the motion. The motion is to leave the,
By default, I mean, we
by
made a motion.
default, we
to
don't have
change,
to vote.
So,
Right,
we're
yeah, but
not,
let's
you
just
know,
make it official, so,
Okay.
okay.
just,
what was that, Andrew? I'm sorry.
No, she says it's
No, I mean,
obvious
it
that that's the,
there's something that exists and somebody wants to change something and that proposed change is a tie, whatever. So whatever exists. There's,
Right.
Okay.
We should don't have to propose a new motion, leave what's there, because it's there, is what he's.
so the motion is to change it, but then what are we present? We're presenting the board with the change, with the committee has
no,
not
no.
officially.
No, Barbara, no, I mean, I'm sorry.
No,
no,
the-
no, no,
the-
we're- The
Go ahead.
motion is that the motion is that we're considering changing this particular language of this section because we already have it there. So this is just a proposal for the change and we get the vote whether it's yes or no from the rest of the board.
Right.
Right, but we can't, if we have a tie here, we can't make a motion to the board unless we make both proposals.
But what is already
Leave-
there?
Leave
What-
it as
any
is.
board member can make a motion. So, if a committee member feels strongly about this issue, and I think it's a valid, a concern, they can bring it up to the board and the full board will vote, or the executive board will vote and the full board will vote.
So
Sure.
you're gonna make,
I have a question.
2/3 of the vote.
Andrew, wouldn't that be considered an amendment to the bylaws and require some special treatment?
Yes, it requires
Yeah.
2/3.
Yeah.
So it's like 2/3 of the vote.
2/3 of a vote, and I think there's something else that has to be done. Signatures is something we had, and then a 2/3 vote.
but aren't we
No.
amending the whole bylaws? Aren't we amending everything anyway?
We are amending
Well, I thought it
everything.
was gonna go through as a package, but evidently we're picking out different things and
No, no,
That
but
means it's amendment, not
So this-
a
Let me,
a regular
if I-
motion.
can I explain the rules? So the rule is if any board member wishes to present an amendment to the bylaws, and they can
Right.
do that at any time. In this case, all they need is 2/3 support in order to present it to the full board. So in this case, because we are remote, a board member can start a Google form similar to what we did and
Right.
have board members click on it if they wish to support it and then bring it to a full board vote. That's the rule.
well, oh, okay.
Okay, so they get signatures and then
Silence
they
is-
bring it for a 2/3 vote. Yes, that's what we've done in the past. That's in the bylaws, I believe, someplace.
So just to understand, how is that different from every other change we are making in this, or the recommended?
It
changes we-
expedites it because right now these bylaws are nowhere near being finished. It still needs a comment period. It needs a review
Right.
period, executive vote, and then needs a general board, right? After
It'll
review.
take a while.
Right, so it'll be a few months before we get there. If there's something that a board member feels that it needs to be expedited, and that's their discretion, right? It can garner the support, they can bring it forth. It's similar to what a motion from the floor could be, obviously with some stipulants to it.
Right. So we're gonna bring, I guess, any committee member can bring this to the full board with the recommended changes, and let's move on.
With the Google signatures, I guess, and then bring it to the board.
Okay? Is that clear with everybody? Is that good with everybody?
So just to be clear, we're gonna do a form that's gonna go out for support and then be brought to the board for full vote. Two-step
If it
process,
reaches the 3/4, right?
2/3 of the vote.
2/3 of the vote, yeah, I guess to the
Like
exec
again,
and then to the full board.
But to be clear, form first to get support, to gather the support, and then two will be the vote to obtain the 2/3 of the board.
Right.
Correct?
I believe so. You go to the exec first, then the full board.
Yes.
No, it does not. It does not. It does not. It could just go straight to the floor at the general. It does not need executive. It does not.
Where is it saying that it does not need exec?
Because it's just like a motion from the floor, Barbara. It's just the amendment. Go
No,
back to
no,
the
it's not a
bylaws and read
motion
that.
from the floor if she's getting Google signatures.
She's not getting Google signatures. She's getting support. The vote still needs to take place.
Uh,
And it needs full support, not executive support. Full 2/3 means full support.
Right, after it's approved by, like any other motion.
No, because the executive has been informal process, not a formal process. There's nothing in here unless you wish to put that in here that says that. And Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, sorry, I was not paying attention, sorry.
No, Andrew, I said that after they got the Google signatures, it should go to the exec, and then from the exec, they go for a 2/3 vote with the full board. And
Yeah,
I
but the
was
requirement is
disagreeing.
2/3 of the full board. Let's be very clear here. The 2/3 is required from the full board, not the
Yeah,
exec.
right, definitely.
So there's no need for it to pass the exec, is what I'm clarifying.
No, but it wouldn't be something terrible to present it at least, so they know what's going on.
No, not disagreeing, just letting
Okay,
the
right,
clear.
right. That's a common courtesy for any motion.
Okay, so are we gonna do the Google Docs or are we going to do the motion from the floor?
Well, yeah, no, it has to go Google, I believe, signatures. And then
Okay.
any amendment to the bylaws,
Right,
okay?
okay. All right, with that, let's move on. That's a decision.
That's enough for one night.
I want a drink.
You need a break? Okay.
No, I need a drink, not a break.
Yeah, right. A
Then
little
this will get
wine
Well,
with-
you know what? I think this conversation is important because
Oh, absolutely, yeah. no,
we
you-
have, we, right now, we have somebody on leave. What if they get elected? we're gonna be without a committee, a chair. I mean, that's just reality we have right now,
Right.
right? So it's not a hypothetical situation now. We could be the whole summer. And I know like I said, Barbara is doing a great job. Nobody is questioning that.
You don't have to worry, I'm not running for the position, so. No,
But
thank you.
you
I'll, you know,
You should.
no. I have
Yeah.
enough on my plate right now.
Yeah.
with
So
other-
the thing is,
Go ahead.
you know, I mean, it's really, you know, there may be other board members that would step up to the plate if the current chair that is on leave has to step down.
Right.
Well, that's why I like the current bylaws. It gives people a little time to think, and hopefully we'll get a good leader as opposed to just, you know, a rush job.
Right.
But
Right,
that's
so
my
that-
opinion. You're
Right. So
That's
that's good. So we have we have two options on the table to leave it as is. What we don't want is what Edgar said in the chat room is that we have in November, we're having election in November. That's what we don't want. So I think if because why this election is June 28th, we don't even know when this election is gonna happen.
That's right. So,
Yeah,
you
but
know, that's,
this is why this is so important, because there's so many ifs. The world's changing so much. There's so many ifs that can happen, and we could be stuck in something. So it's why not make it clear from now forward?
so in other words, well, even to be practical for this summer, if Emmanuel doesn't come back, you know, and wins the primary or whatever, for whatever reason, then people have the summer to campaign or whatever, because the primaries are after we moved, remember the date of our June meeting up, so.
Oh, can I ask also about the process for when we have finalized our recommended changes to the bylaws and we present it to the full board in June?
No, never.
Right,
That's
so
the way they go.
all that we're talking about is not gonna go into effect, so we have to live with the current bylaws, correct?
No, that's what we were talking about earlier. Anyone can propose an amendment beforehand and get it passed, the
I
bylaws.
see.
You don't
Okay.
use the bylaws, yeah.
Okay, so
that's-
that's different than approving all the changes in to the bylaws, right?
Right.
Okay,
That's
I just
the
want to make it
purpose.
clear. Okay,
That's the purpose of doing that for that one item rather than
got it.
we're
Okay,
not going to finish this document by the end of this meeting, and then we can't present it at the June meeting.
got you. Okay, I wanted to just be clear.
Right.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank
Just
you.
an amendment.
Thank you.
Right,
for clarifying.
right. So I think that's it. I think that the amendment should go, get their signatures by Google, if that's the recommendation, if we feel that strongly about it, of those that have proposed it. Let's see what happens.
Okay.
Do we
So-
want to continue to work on anything, or are we gonna be good for that? Because we do have a meeting June 9th.
Yeah, we have a meeting when, June 9th?
June 9th is our next meeting.
I better pull out
Really?
the calendar.
Oops.
Yes, because we had to move everything up because,
Oh, because June 14th is the,
Yeah,
that's
that
when,
famous date, right?
they still, they still have not decided, I mean, to allow just us to finish off the year.
I know, that's crazy.
I think, honestly, I think they will, but they're gonna do it the day before, because that's just,
That's terrible.
but that's how they're doing it.
So you'll run around, get a place for a meeting, and then we won't use it. And the
Yeah,
public will
well,
be
I'm running around
confused.
trying to get them to extend it, so I'd rather run around for that.
right?
Yeah, terrible.
Yes,
That's
we
all
have it, we have it scheduled.
Fighting, so I'm trying to see if they extend it to at least the end of the year, which was what, June 30th, right?
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. I
So
mean,
you are organizing, hopefully, the other DMs to scream a little bit.
You know, Barbara, you were in on that meeting.
I
definitely-
know. They're afraid of their jobs, I think, the way they sat there.
Yeah, I know. I was the main. Yeah, but it's fine.
Complainer, whatever you want to call yourself, but the others, just sat and listened.
Well, these are real concerns, right? Like I
Right.
wasn't expressing something that was
No,
selfish, it was
no.
rather, consensus that unfortunately, people are afraid of some sort of retribution. What's right is right. If you're going to give us the tools to go hybrid, then no problem. I don't think anyone's objecting that, but you can't assume that every board is created equal for us to
Right.
go hybrid. No one's opposed to the public participating and having all those tools, but the city does have an IT department. They could fund us, right, and give us a staff person or two to go around the 12 boards at the very least for the general board meeting.
Right.
So that's the advocacy, right? Like we're not opposed to doing something if you're giving us the tools, but don't have expectations if we don't have the tools. That's the essence of the meeting, right? And what we pleaded with the borough president's office was advocate for us. Legislation doesn't happen on its own, right? So we're here,
True,
we're on a Zoom with you today because legislation usually comes up because there's an issue. And here's the issue. We don't operate like every township across the state. Community boards are very unique, and this is a state law. So I'm guessing that they're taking more into consideration the township boards, right? Versus
True.
community. So this is kind of like the plea we made with the team when we met with the BP's office saying, your job is to advocate for us. Here are our grievances. And it's not like we just complained, right? We literally brought in potential solutions. We literally itemized what could work, right?
Right.
So we did try to help ourselves because it's an issue for all 59 community boards. It really is. So, we're hopeful. Like I said, we're gonna keep on fighting, and I don't think it's like something that how do I put this? It's not something that anyone's doing deliberately. I just think that the state of New York sometimes operates with the whole one size fits all mentality, right? And unfortunately that just doesn't work, and we need to be heard. And our concerns need to be addressed. The pandemic did kind of aid us in a way where it allowed more people to participate, but also disenfranchise many, right? Especially if you didn't have Wi-Fi and you don't have access. So it's like one of those scenarios where it was a hit or miss. But we want to make it work, whatever that means, with technology in the near future. So that's kind of like what we're advocating for. So we listed items that could work. If we wanted to fully operate under the same umbrella. So, we're hopeful. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
Okay. Do we want to continue? Try to do a little bit more? Do we want? Does anybody?
And I also think that this is really good because we're now looking at these bylaws in depth in ways that we never looked at them before. COVID has changed a lot of the way we operate and we think and we do certain things. So this is good. And like we said, I wouldn't be on here advocating for stuff if I didn't feel strongly about it. And I know I've been very quiet at times, but I don't think I could be quiet anymore. If I see something and I'm gonna feel strongly about it on the board, I'm gonna make it known.
Well, I think one thing that's really good, just to touch on what you're saying, Yahira, is that a lot of us have been on the board for a while, so we see a lot of changes, and we want to make the bylaws almost like a living document, that it reflects, reality. It's and the kind of changes. I mean, it's a decent document up to a point, but it could definitely, stand to be improved on many levels, cleaning up the language, all kinds of things, but also having it reflect the kind of things that we can anticipate happening, on a community board. So I think that that's very good.
And I feel strongly that we should take our time. I mean, tonight we've covered like a very small section, but there was a lot of controversy, a lot of opinions and whatever.
But we
And
wouldn't be a board-
it shouldn't be a rush job.
But we wouldn't be a board if we didn't have controversy, if we didn't have
Right,
different.
exactly. Oh, I'm not putting controversy down. I'm saying that's good, that we didn't rush, we listened to everybody, we voted, whatever, and we know what the options are.
Mhm. Yeah. So
Thank you, Andrew. I see you put in the chat room.
I don't see the chat. How come I'm not seeing what's in the chat?
If you go on the bottom, there should be,
Yeah, no, I know, but I don't see the chat itself.
There should be a caret next to the chat icon. If you click on that, it might show you another option. The other thing is that the chat window normally goes into the side of the main.
Yeah, no,
But sometimes it separates itself out. You can separate it out to its own window by
Right.
accident.
Thank you.
But what Andrew put is what could be the amendment you circulate.
Okay.
That's
got
what
it.
Andrew put.
All right.
Okay, well, we'll hold special to fill.
Yes, I agree.
I agree.
Yes, debate is part of the game. Yes, it is.
Yep,
And that's
it
what
is.
makes a good
Right.
functioning board. Because everybody gets to give their opinion. And, you know, like I said, I like to work by consensus because you keep friends that way. But then we have to have a vote. So, so
So I
that's
chose a poor word. I should have said our debate rather than our controversy.
right,
Okay.
right. It's just
More
different
positive.
differences of opinion. And like I said, we're all friends here. We all want to do what's best for the community. So I saw it. Thank you again, Andrew, for putting that in the chat room. I've noted it. And is there any more discussion on this? Because I think, you know, at this point to start another section, we'll be here all night.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
So I think the motion is, well, not the motion. What's going to happen is a committee member is going to create, you know, get signatures via Google, present that to the board, and I make a motion from the floor and have the board vote. And you know, I guess if this is something you feel strongly about, then this is campaign. That's why we campaign and be ready to defend your opinion or for or against.
Okay.
And that's it. Sounds good. So, and I just I realize now, since we don't have Antwain, I'm going to ask the chair, we need to put in a couple of other people on this committee. I think an odd number is always good. I don't know. I see Hugo here, if he might be interested in joining. I don't know. Put it out there, but we do need to put some more people on this committee so we don't have, you know,
A tie all the
tie
time.
again.
Stalemate.
Yeah, we don't need stalemate, right?
Okay.
Not chess. Okay, we need somebody to you know, to pull us over when it needs to happen. Okay.
Okay.
So with that, anybody make a motion to close?
Motion to close?
Seconded.
Okay. Thank you, everybody that came on and added to the debate. This was good. And good night. And we'll see you at the next meeting. All right.
Good night.
June 9th, don't forget.
Got
Okay.
it.
All
Okay,
right.
nice. Wow.
Everybody.
Okay.
All right.
Good night.
Good
In
night.
the corner.
Right.
Good night. Night.
Night all.
Good night.
Night all. And thank you, Charles, for coming on. Charles Barnes. Thank you.